Press and perhaps by members of the general public. I'm filling in tonight for Ron Ritchie, who I'm happy to say is recovering quickly, and hopefully will be back a week from tonight. Our first order of business is approval of minutes from January 5th. We had both the regular minutes and an executive session.
I just have the bottom page 2, Julie, it says special employee. Reagan explained the town hall receptionist also instead of all.
I move we accept as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move we approve the executive session minutes as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
2 down. Okay, next up, we have a presentation from the Community Preservation Committee of their recommendations for CPA grants for the annual town meeting this year.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello. Yeah, we simply wanted to do the right thing by sharing with you our recommendations for the slate of warrant articles for CPA funding, which I believe you have in your packets. Yeah, I got it. And I guess a bit of explanation may provide some helpful background. First of all, for the last couple of years, our committee has worked in the shadow of an 800-pound gorilla, which is the debt service, the bond service commitment that was made in the 2012 ATM and voted and approved at that meeting. So it appears that this is the first year that payment will become due. I don't know if I'm using the correct financial terminology, but the first payment under that agreement we expect to become due this year, this calendar year. So that the way we opted to deal with that is, first of all, of course, honor the vote that the town took, and second, and we've been working on this component for a couple of years now, trying to find a way to make these payments in advance, in part to get out from under some of the interest, and in other part just to get back to the work of funding projects and other things to basically clear our books of the town hall obligation and get back to the higher visibility kinds of work that we tend to favor as a committee. So to that end, then, of the grants that were the grant applications that were submitted to us this year, we decided to take no action on a number of them, and of those that we did take action on, I think it's fair to say that they were ones that fit into the required 10% category that we work with. That is for affordable housing, for open space and recreation, and for historical preservation. The historical preservation component, of course, is satisfied, and then some with the payment we make for the town hall renovation project. We did have the fortunate circumstance to have some money in a historic reserve fund from previous years, and, presumably from funds that were awarded but not all spent. And we were able to fund, at least in part, Janet Valenti's request to do her preservation of town records, which is something that I guess is an annual project of hers and mandated by state law. So that's a summary, I guess, to accompany our proposed slate. We, as a committee, sought to spell that all out in our annual report as well, so that the town understands what we had to work with and what we set out to do.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
If I may. How much money did you have to start with this year? I know every year you're sort of
Yeah.
carrying forward amounts and all of that.
I mean,
but
you-
and the reason I'm asking is your requested amount column shows 427,000 and change. So those were the applications you got.
Right.
And then your recommendation is $463,000. So
Right.
you clearly had more than the 427. Did you have more than the 463?
Yes. What was not included in the requested amount column were the amounts that we expected to have to pay for the debt service, as well as for the payment for direct coverage of expenses in the $300,000. They were, I guess that's just an editorial decision that I made, since they didn't come to us in the form of a grant application. But
Okay,
but to your question.
Yeah, did you have more than $463,000 to allocate to either paying the debt service or other applications? Or,
Actually, I didn't bring my spreadsheets, but typically we're getting around 250,000 a year.
okay,
And last year, we allocated the minimum in anticipation of this year. And our expectation was that the first years of the debt service would cost us roughly $80,000.
okay,
So we wanted to make sure we could build up a little bit of a stockpile or.
carrying fund.
Yeah, right. So, as I say, we made a minimum payment to our three mandatory requirements. And basically, we essentially did that again this year, until we know what our numbers are. But as Dee Dee said, we voted to make a $300,000 payment just to bring the debt service down, save ourselves some interest payments. And I think now we're talking about roughly $60,000 a year for the first couple of years instead of the $80,000. So it gives us a little more. I mean, we're in a position where it was a little uncertain as to what we had to expect. So now that we're into the bond payments, I think hopefully next year we'll have a better understanding of what we can afford, how the payment schedule is going to go, and so forth, so.
So are you anticipating that the borrowing would then be for, this 300 is off of your $1 million obligation, correct?
Right.
So you'll have 700 carrying forward, and do you expect now to just sort of carry that as a constant thing, or would you try to take another big bite out of it next year too? Or haven't you decided that
No,
yet?
well, I mean, discussion with Lorraine is that it's not really worth,
Okay,
because you have to refinance the whole thing.
okay,
So your financing costs
okay,
go and eat into it.
okay.
Leo, you want to make a comment?
No, but John hit it on the head. So I think in summary, the big driver was this saves the town about $100,000 of interest expense over the life of the loan.
Over 20 years.
Yeah,
Like by prepaying this piece
by
of it.
prepaying, yeah. So instead of borrowing $1 million, essentially you're borrowing $700,000 at the same interest rate.
Right.
The requested amounts shown on the spreadsheet are the amounts of request for funding, not the amount of money we had.
Right, no, I understand that.
Okay, and then the number to the right of that represents residual balance and income coming in the next fiscal year.
So fiscal year 17,
yeah.
okay.
I had a question, which was I remember the $1 million that was voted for this, that we've already discussed, and you're prepaying 300,000 of it. This 85,000 that you're also paying, that's not out of the million, that's just the interest to date or something? Is that what that is?
Right, and actually, that
That number's incorrect.
has been corrected. That
Oh.
was for the $1 million bond payment. Now that we're at 700,000, it should be around 62,000.
Okay,
so.
plus you pay that 62, you pay the 300, and we still have 700 left, right? So the
Yes.
62 must be some type of,
62
Interest or
is
something.
the,
It's interest and principal.
I see.
their portion of principal and interest for the payment of the bond, which will be due next June.
Okay.
I think at the end of 20 years, the last payment, we're at 36,000 instead of the 60. So it does decrease, but it's pretty gradual.
Did anybody else have any questions?
Do the bonds work like a mortgage, Tim? Or is it even? No, it's even, right? So you prepay it once, but then principal interest stays level basically until,
Principal stays level, the interest portion
Fluctuates.
fluctuates.
Unlike a mortgage.
And that will be determined by the bond market on the day that we go out and whatever the terms are, whatever the lowest terms are on that given day. Some of them do it same interest for 5 years and then drop it or increase whatever. I've seen it run different ways, different times in my career. Okay?
I had one other question, which was, Janet asked for 29,000 and change to preserve town records, and you're transferring 26,000. What happens to the difference? Does she reduce the size of her
Yeah,
project?
The
basically.
bottoms of the pages won't be restored.
Just the tops. Okay.
Yeah, we're hoping that she can do something with that, and, you know, we're sorry that we couldn't fund in full as she requested.
I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, there were a lot of nice projects this year that we couldn't fund. Hopefully, they'll come back next year with the same application, and we'll be able to fund a few more. I guess the other thing that's on my mind was that our timing and request for applications. I know, you probably know, 2 years ago, we had someone go into the CPC, and they were late to come to us, and we couldn't fund them.
Right.
And this year, essentially, some of these projects may have been able to go to the CPC if the timing was right also. So I don't know if we should be
To
having.
CPIC.
CPIC,
yes.
Capital Committee, yeah.
So I don't know if we should be informing these people to, or groups and applications to submit to both, so they don't get cut off.
Yeah, that might be a good idea, because it was the Hildreth House project that
Right,
got messed up.
yeah.
I remember that. And-
Yeah, we actually accelerated our schedule this year, decision-making schedule, because we thought that it would help prevent that kind of a thing from happening this year, but apparently it didn't.
Yeah, the other thing that's hard is that, excuse me, if people are getting funding, say it's a two-year project that they're applying for, so, and the funding might be the next coming in fiscal year starting July 1, they might not have all the money they have to do the first phase of the project before you're asking for an application for the second phase and explanation of what they've done and why they haven't. I mean, sometimes there's so little time to actually accomplish anything before they're looking for another round of funding.
Well, they're not necessarily limited to 1 year.
Right.
I know, and so it's,
Projects,
but it's tricky, because you're applying funds from previous fiscal years, and so they can get it right after town meeting approves it, but
Mhm.
it's still a rather short window when, well, what was your application date this year, September?
Yes.
Okay, and in the past, it's been,
Well, we didn't change, we didn't change the
Been-
application
Actually,
date.
you're right, we didn't change that.
It was just, we just shortened the amount of time we had to deliberate and discuss.
oh, okay. Yeah, so I think your idea of recommending that they submit simultaneously, and then perhaps you sit down and talk to CPIC also and figure out what's the best way to fund projects. I mean, that's the whole point, is how do we
Right.
do this work?
Yeah.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then thank you very much for coming this evening and communicating this. Okay, the next topic is the town hall update.
Hello.
Hello.
I guess we announce what we've been able to announce is that the project's still on track, and we've gotten a recent schedule from the general contractor, and we don't see anything in there that is a red flag to us. We wanted to show you what change orders we've had. Yeah, and we've approved $115,000 worth of change orders. And we have 67,000 pending for a total of 182,000, but the total budget is 242,000. So we feel pretty good about that position, since most of what we thought we'd find would be earlier in the process. We have some major events that will be done by the end of January, one of which is the lift installation, which will be nice to have that done.
Somebody can have a test drive in it?
I think you are.
So I can get to the
Yes.
second floor.
Okay. Will we have photographers available? And you won't get stuck mid-floor?
I'm hoping not to.
Better not.
We'll have Eagle Elevator there that day.
So you can see what's going on in the town hall part. The Hildreth House, we're getting started, working with LLB architects who did the pre-design drawings, and now we have to make them specific enough that they can go out to bid. And we do expect bids to be out in March, and the work completed by the fourth quarter of 2016. Is that right?
That's
Is
fast.
that right? Yeah.
very fast.
That's this year.
Yeah, but
It's this year, yes.
I
Yeah.
think that's what they were saying. We would be
So-
out
Yeah.
Yes.
back in by November or something, so.
You've all noticed that the lantern that we used to call the cupola is up on the building. Rick got pretty creative with the next line, and I refuse to sing it, but it is.
Maybe Jack will sing.
Yes.
No, Jack's not gonna sing.
But it's, it has withstood all of the, the wind that we've had, and the little tree is still up there, so.
It's impressive.
Yes, yeah, it is. I mentioned that GVW had supplied the master schedule. They've also supplied the request for payment number 8, which we are presenting to you, and the committee approved it, and we approved it to recommend to you, and that's the only action we're asking for tonight from you, is to approve payment number 8 for $323,742.43.
So moved.
Just a question. It's not minus the $1,200? I wasn't clear on that, because it said, a lot of these things have the $1,200 for the lights taken off.
322,
Yeah, 322 is the number.
602,
322,
Well, which is-
602. She said 323.
Yeah, they're
Yeah, I
two,
did. I didn't have
the
that.
report has one number and the invoice has another number.
Right, the number you read to
Oh,
us
thank
has
you.
been scratched out in the report, and
Okay.
a smaller number put in.
So it's $322,602.42.
42 cents.
Okay.
All right, so that's been moved. Is somebody
Second.
seconded? Yeah. Is there any discussion on the motion?
So it's for the $322,602.42.
Correct.
Does Stu get to keep the 1,200?
He found it.
Did.
Finder's fee, 10%.
That's right.
Finder's fee.
Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous.
Thank you for the great job.
Yeah, you guys are doing a
You're doing a great job.
phenomenal job.
Before you leave, is there anybody else with any questions or comments on the report? I just had one, which was, I see, we talked a moment ago about the Hildreth House is moving pretty quickly, and I'm wondering if you've thought about where those folks are going to move to when the construction happens. I mean, if it says here you're going out to bid in March, so when would they have to leave the building? Like June or something, or?
They are working on where they're going to go, and Debbie Thompson and Connie Larrabee, or Connie's on our committee, and Debbie's looking around for where they're going to move to.
Okay.
And I'm not sure exactly what month it would be. That's,
I think they're anticipating May, because that was the hopeful start date of construction. I don't know if that's still going to be
once,
there.
because we'll be done with town hall right then, and they'll be
So that
starting
was one
Hildreth
thought.
House.
I was at the COA meeting, and it seems, they haven't made a final decision, I guess that's fair to say, but it seems they're leaning towards having their offices in this building, but approaching the churches about being able to do meals, probably at the Congregational Church, which will have some logistical issues because the staff likes to be able to mingle with people coming in Tuesday and Thursday for meals. So either closing this building while they go over to wherever the meal is, or if somebody is on, you find somebody to stay here and cover phones or whatever. But they'll work
Yeah,
all that
they
out.
are working
And
on it.
then also the issue of moving furniture out, because if they come in here, there's no furniture here. It will all be gone. But I understand that Mr. Bragan's working on a solution to that with the DPW.
Good, Norm. I'm glad it seems to be under discussion, that's good.
Yes, it
It
is.
is under discussion. But when does this building get vacated by the town hall and move back into the town hall?
Oh, the
That's not-
day after you guys are done with the
No,
town.
I heard there was an issue about not doing it until after the taxes are
Correct.
paid, so it's not until sometime in May that town hall staff vacate this
I
building.
think Tim has a schedule for that, somewhere around May
Mid-May.
7th or
It's
something?
mid-May. It's
Mid-May?
announced it to the board
Which
in the
means
past.
then Hildreth House can't really move in here until after that, so I'll have to make sure
Yeah.
that's thought through. But they're
We
discussing
can
it.
do that on the same day.
Yeah. I know you've got a good plan.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, then thank you very much.
Thank you.
No empty trucks, right?
Yeah, no.
We are a couple minutes ahead of
Oh, yeah.
schedule,
Bring your chairs.
but seems like we should take this next topic. So the next topic is the report on the town administrator position.
You all have it.
Are we on this?
Where was this tweet? My speed reading.
That'd be a quiz.
So Tim, you want to kick this off?
Yep. First, I want to thank the board for your confidence and trust in giving me this assignment. I have to tell you, my initial concern was to ensure that any biases I, as the sitting administrator, had in this task was neutralized. And to do that, I needed to involve people of varied experience volunteering with the town and who made Harvard their community and their home. Before asking anyone to work with me on this, I checked with legal counsel to ensure I was not violating the updated meeting law, and I was not. That was also later confirmed by the Attorney General's office.
You mean the open meeting law?
Yeah.
Okay.
I then sat down and talked to the individuals and explained what I needed to do. And with their help, and each one of them agreed to assist, together these individuals had various years of volunteering in Harvard, some as little as 4, some as many as 31-plus years, and all with differing backgrounds and points of view. If you remember, back in October, November, I announced to the board exactly who I had put together and who was going to be working with me on this. And once we got started, I asked Mr. Eubank to lead the discussions so as to further ensure that I did not control or sway the discussion in any way. And now, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Eubank and present the report.
Great. Thanks, Tim. First of all, let me sort of fill out the pieces of who was on the working group. We had as our, I guess, senior partner, Rick Maori, with over 31 years of experience. He sort of heads up the list. Most recently, Building Committee Chair, Water and Sewer Commissioner. Rick couldn't be here tonight, but his help was just incredibly useful. He was present when actually the Board of Select, he was a member of the Board of Selectmen when it changed from 3 members to 5. So that's the kind of continuity and experience he brought. We have Alice von Leska, who is the chair of the Finance Committee, Victor Norman, who is the Personnel Board Chair and been part of the Master Steering Committee, Janet Valenti, our Town Clerk, Ron Ritchie, who unfortunately can't be here tonight either. So I think it's a very good group. I'm sorry. That's all right. And we had Marie too. Now, yeah, kick my chair. You weren't. I left you off that list, but Marie was invaluably helpful to us as well. And I guess we looked around, there were 4 people on the committee that had been selectmen at one point, so we had a pretty strong group. We met really informed, as I think Tim said, as a response to the selectmen's initiative, which was assigned to Ron and Tim, to put together this team and make a report to the Board of Selectmen by the second meeting in January, which we got a week's grace, but here we are. So as we understood it from Ron and also from doing some research, the primary goals that the Selectmen had in considering this change were to increase operational efficiency, reduce complexity of governance, and ideally to increase volunteerism in the town. In order to understand how changes like this could be made, the group researched written material on the subject, which is attached as an appendix or a addendum to your report, considerable amount of documentation, and additionally a town manager and a town administrator recommended by the Mass Municipal Association met with the group to share their insights and experience. We had 2 former Harvard town administrators, Paul Cohen and John Petrin, and they later visited with the group and shared their knowledge. The group subsequently researched the existing structure and responsibilities of the Board of Selectmen and its town administrator. And after this, the group identified 3 areas for operational improvement which seemed to meet the objectives the selectmen had initially set out: warrant approval, personnel appointments, and a formal delineation of the town administrator in the budget process. The net effect of these changes would be to provide the town administrator with a more formalized authority in these areas and allow the Board of Selectmen to operate on more of a policy-making level. You may be aware that this seems to be one of the overall themes of such activities that have occurred around the state in the past as well. Board of Selectmen operating more like a board and the administrator or manager operating as a chief executive. In the final analysis, we recommended for consideration by the Board of Selectmen the following: Employee appointments below the level of department head and excluding fire department staff would be made by the town administrator. Responsibility for discipline of town employees under the Board of Selectmen to be delegated to the town administrator. Authority to approve payroll and vendor warrants would be delegated to the town administrator. And then we codified the current budget process. We didn't see much change in this from what's really happening, but it would be as follows. The town administrator approves the operating and capital budgets for departments under the jurisdiction of the selectmen prior to presenting said budgets to the Board of Selectmen for approval. Approved budgets are then presented to the Finance Committee and/or the Capital Planning and Investment Committee as appropriate, which is, as I understand, pretty much what we do now, and Alice can expand on that if necessary. The working group saw no need to change the title of the town administrator to town manager while these changes were accomplished. From a lot of the input that we received, there are people with town manager positions, town manager titles, and people who are titled town administrator that are essentially doing the same thing. So the title is not a significant part of this. So given this relatively limited scope, how to improve efficiency and so forth, we recommended that a home rule special act would be the most inclusive and effective approach, would also be the most timely approach. It's mindful of Harvard's tradition of an open town meeting because such an act would be considered and voted on at town meeting as well as at the ballot. And a home rule special act would require a passage of a majority of town meeting, majority vote at town meeting on the warrant article proposing the act. If passed, this would be followed by a petition to the general court to enact the proposed special act, then approval of the special act by the House of Representatives and the Senate, and finally signature by the governor. So that's a quick summary of the activities of the working group, and I'd be happy to take any questions and amplify further.
Leo?
Just one detail, Bob,
Yeah.
if I may. On your first bullet point, employee appointments below the level of department head,
Yep.
I didn't hear you say subject to confirmation by the Board of Selectmen.
That's because we deleted that this morning.
Okay.
In discussing it, because we thought it actually clouded our intent.
Okay.
The intent is to have the appointments made by the town administrator and to actually take the Board of Selectmen out of that loop. If there was a confirmation process or a veto, which is in some cases what's done, then that would still have some piece of approval hanging over the process, which was not our intent. If in fact the appointments are not to the satisfaction of the board, overall they'll have the obligation to deal with the administrator, accordingly.
Are you impressed that I was actually paying attention?
I'm very impressed, very
Thanks,
impressed.
Bob.
Good. Yeah, thank you.
Lucy or Stu?
Well, I had a question about, on that same bullet, excluding the fire department's staff.
Yeah, apparently there is something called, which I love the title of this, the Massachusetts Strong Chief Law. And the Strong Chief Law determines that fire department staff are appointed by the chief. So that's the principal reason for that.
We didn't task you with looking at the town clerk position about being an appointed or elected position, did we, or?
No.
No.
We didn't. Yeah, and again, input from Ron and from others, this is where we ended up.
Other comments?
Well, and that's actually, because that was something else that was on our list for goals this year. And we have several things happening simultaneously, and in my mind, I've been trying to sort out what's the best way to navigate all this. This is basically a home rule petition to change the authority and the powers of the town administrator.
Right.
So it's going through the whole process of approval by town meeting and then into Boston to be approved by all the appropriate parties. We have this question of the status of the town clerk. Are we going to change that position from being an elected position or an appointed position, given the complexity of that job now, how it's evolved in the 20-odd years that Janet's been doing it? And there's some other things that perhaps, looking at the functioning of our town government, that might need careful consideration. And we have somebody who's been suggesting that we do a charter commission, which would, I think, depend, and I don't understand fully how it would work, but my understanding is you could go into the charter commission process delineating what you want to get out of it. We want to look at this, and these things, and the commissioners would be charged with trying to address those and coming back with a recommendation that would be incorporated into a town charter that, the same as the home rule petition, goes into, after the town approves it, goes into the state for approval.
Right.
So I'm just wondering if we go through all of this when we have other things hanging out there and some people starting to look at how do we effectively manage ourselves as a small community and being reliant on volunteers, but recognizing we need to give them the support to do their jobs adequately or properly or even better than we do. Is this premature? I guess that's what I'm wondering, is if, when you got near the end of this process, did you think, well, now there's this charter commission idea out there, would this be appropriate to fold into the work of a charter commission?
Well, they're not mutually exclusive.
No, I know, but
You could do both.
Right, it's just a question of how does the town view it when you go to town meeting, if you do it one year as a home rule petition, and then you come back, 2 town meetings later and say, now we have another idea.
Well, the charter, actually, that process doesn't go to town meeting. That just goes directly to the vote, so there's no town meeting consideration.
Well, to establish the charter, I believe that, what about the charter when it's been formed?
No, it's just voted upon.
So so it's just up to the commissioners, and they have to, just through public hearings, present it to the town?
Correct.
Okay.
Leo, you want to say something?
So my recollection of when we came up with this as one of the goals was to actually look at ways so that our time would be dealing more with policy and issues as opposed to sort of routine details. There's a lot of reappointments, there's a lot of signing of warrants, that sort of stuff, which I think we all have a lot of confidence in Tim can handle without our input. And in fact, our participation in that is funky. It is not like we are reviewing the warrant line for line. I know you did, Bob, when you were a select person. But, so this,
Very careful.
I see this as quite different from the charter discussion. I see this as sort of housekeeping. Respectfully, I don't mean it to understate what you did, but I see this as making what we already have a little bit better. And then what little I know about the charter thing is, I think, is taking a holistic view at how the whole town operates, right? How the governance in the whole town works together. That's a much bigger thing to deal with. So my feeling is we asked you to do something and you did it. And at this point, we say thanks and we consider it and decide what to do next.
Sounds good.
That's very helpful. For sure.
These tweaks seem so minor. This can't just be a town meeting vote. This has to be a home rule petition.
I know, we had the same reaction. In fact, we had the same
We were
discussion.
shaking our heads.
Said,
Like,
really?
Okay.
Is
Yeah.
it necessary? I mean, under these, or couldn't we just do this? You
Right.
know, But in fact, it is required to.
Those categories, yeah, and the
yeah.
document under responsibilities of the Board of Selectmen are established by law.
Okay.
Yeah, just to follow up that point, I've been very curious about this document. I remember when the selectmen set it off back in June, said, would you go look at how to make it a little more efficient here? But then there was a lot of mystery in town as to what was happening. And last Thursday, I saw this document for the first time, and my reaction was sort of the same way, like, you're kidding. I mean, I was quite frankly underwhelmed I mean, this is, you know, before I became a selectman, I used to think, you know, signing the warrant, that sounds like really something big. But I gotta tell you, signing a warrant is, you know, twice a month, 2 selectmen have to go to the town hall and sign the payroll.
That's payroll, yeah.
And all the names inside, they're all like, all the salaries are all public anyway. I mean,
Have
it's
you
the-
been on the board for a year yet?
Year and a half
Oh,
of
he didn't get his Dakota ring or anything.
the Dakota. And then signing the expense warrant is similar. I mean, it's, so, that may seem mysterious from the outside, but it's, and then as far as the budget process, I kind of thought that's what Tim did anyway. And disciplining employees is the other one, and I actually think it's better for the employees to do it that way than try to drag the selectmen into disciplinating.
And it's kind,
Better
there's
for
a
the
stage.
selectmen, too.
way
Better for the
it's
selectmen
done
and the
now.
employees.
There's a liability issue as well, and
So I was kind of like, yeah, does this really require an act of the state legislature to do these things?
someone said too that what there is there's a certain leveling process that the state wants to make sure is taking place, and that there's not some anomaly over here in one town that isn't, effectively being done by another one. So I think it's just the way it is.
As Marie told you, I mean, it's set out in state law what the Board of Selectmen are supposed to be dealing with.
Sign warrants.
Right, exactly. It says, Board of Selectmen shall sign the warrant. In order for you, you cannot just give that authority away. So in order to do that, you need to make changes.
Are there other comments or questions from anyone on the board?
No, I'd like to thank this group for the work, though.
Do you have copies of all of these different town job descriptions?
Of every document.
Oh, I might come borrow some from you. I know you have them. I'd be curious.
You have a lot of them already, because back in December, after our meetings and after the board, the group that I was working with received the materials, Ron asked that I give it to all the board members here, and you have that.
Did you send it as a PDF then?
No, I gave, we gave you hard copies.
I'll
at
have
this
to go
meeting.
look.
Big
and see.
packet with a big
I'll go
clip on it.
look into my pile of big
Yes.
packets.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Ron wanted to make sure that the board.
I
had the
remember
same
seeing the
material.
Groton one, but I don't
No, there was
remember all the
a bunch
others.
of material attached with that.
No, I'd like to thank you as well. I mean, you're all very busy, 7 meetings over many months, and getting, you know, both of our former town administrators in to talk to, as well as other folks from across the state. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
She told me to show it to you.
We are about 10 minutes ahead of schedule. Should we do communication?
Or do town administrator
Do
report?
town administrator report and come back to it in case somebody hasn't come in at 7:55, yeah, I guess. So,
We have the Unitarian Church as an entertainment license request for the Schools Trust Gala, which I have to announce at this meeting and at your next meeting. Bring it up on the agenda for you to act on. You all received at your spots tonight a copy of the proposal for the audiovisual for the town hall, which will be on next week's agenda. Janet did inform me that the petition for the town charter did receive the required signatures, and that will be on your agenda next week for the board to take action on.
Can you tell us anything about this proposal?
Proposal is for the items that we need in order to be able to do what we're doing right now. The biggest cost in there is the wireless microphone system, and that's to get rid of this snake, these wires and everything. It'll be wireless microphones.
Is this in the soft cost budget?
Yes and no. I mean, the original soft cost budget had budgeted $5,000.
Okay.
Literally, and that's what was carried forward through the budget, through the various budgets going back to the original committee. We had company come in, take a look at what we needed to do, what we have, the cameras that we have, they were in the old town hall. they would not work in the room that you're in. They're not of the quality to be able to pick up the aspect of the frame that far away, because we're moving things. The cameras are going on each side of the proscenium, and then two windows back, midway, two windows back from where the board's table will be set up. So the cameras that we thought initially we'd be able to reutilize those, they are not of the quality. We checked not only with the cable group, but with others to make sure. So there are things like that that you'll see throughout the report. Everything is itemized and costed out in the report for the board. And we're giving it to you this week, so you have a week to be able to look at it, and then next week be able to discuss and answer any questions the board has.
Will somebody from HB be coming in?
Yes.
Okay. And how did you select them?
They were on the state bid list.
Okay. And what about the additional funding to cover it?
That will be discussed next week. Will be discussed the whole, as far as where the funding is, and we'll be able to give you an idea as
Okay.
to where we believe it can come from.
Okay.
Right, because we'll have a good idea how contingencies are, most
Yes.
surprises are behind us, right?
Yes. That is correct,
Okay,
as you heard earlier.
right.
With that, Marie was at a meeting earlier tonight with the Board of Health, because we needed to amend the variance that we received for the carpeting for additional space for carpeting than we originally went to the back offices, the town administrator's suite, as well as land use suite. Cute term, right? Suite. Did not have carpeting originally, and it is in the plan now to have it, so Marie was there earlier this evening, trying to get them to amend it. Just to let the board know that the Rich Noda has been going to the Bay State Roads and program, and that he has achieved the rank of Rhodes Scholar, as they call it. ROADS, not ROHDES. He completed all the requirements for our Bay State Road Scholar Program, and it required applicants to attend at least 7 of our training workshops. Each workshop required a minimum of 6 hours participation. And Rich is, as you know, it's part of his road program has always been one of the major things that he brings to the board, usually in the springtime for the following year. And Rich has done a great job and continues to do it and continues to educate himself on our behalf. The architect is working on and should have for next week, a report with respect to the handicap accessibility issues for this building. If anyone wishes to know, we gave them exactly what the board was looking at, as well as the letter from 2014 from the state, and as well as Mark's email. So we've given them all the information that we've had, and we also explained to them that we had this back walkway laser shot as far as distance and slopes and grade and everything, and told them that it doesn't work, and that they have to come up with some type of recommendation, which is gonna be either a ramp or a lift, one of the two. But they're gonna give us, and we gave them both, whether with this building is going to be leased or whether it's going to be used as offices. One or the other, we gave them everything, and they're working on that. And
And-
Lucy and I had the ability to talk to Drayton yesterday, or was it today?
No, it was yesterday.
I got lost. Yesterday.
And I understand Vertex was going to try to give a.
Vertex, once we get the information from the architects, then we're gonna give that to Vertex to give us an idea of what costs will look like.
And we'll,
Instead of having it go out and have to pay to have it
Yeah, that's a good idea.
costed out, we give it to Vertex, who's worked in these fields and has seen the various prices.
right, so so this report we'll have next week, and will Vertex have a chance to look at it
If we get it
before?
in time, Vertex has
That
said that
would
they will
be
turn it around
helpful
quickly
to know
for us.
the
We'd like to
cost.
have them both at the same
Yeah.
time. That will depend on how close to next week we get the report from the architect.
Okay.
But Steve has said that he would turn it around for us. quickly.
Would it be worth, if the report doesn't come in till Monday, say, from LLB, and Vertex can't give a rough cost estimate by Tuesday night, considering it at our next meeting in February, so we have both pieces of information? I mean, we always get hung up on what's it gonna cost.
That's usually the $64,000 question.
Right.
Our
Hopefully,
next meeting would be the 23rd.
right. But I just wonder if it would be a more effective use of our time. We also, hopefully will have that subcommittee in place, so they would have had a chance to read the report and maybe comment on it as well.
They'll pull that all together for the
Yeah.
23rd.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
At the last meeting board had, there was discussion of OPEB and actuarial study, and the board saying that it didn't receive a copy of the last one. Mr. Blair was kind enough to have copies made. He took the original, had them made, which I believe you all would have received electronically, but there they are.
If you can't sleep some night.
Yeah.
This is the most recent one?
That was the one done. We have to do
I
another
have to
one.
find my glasses.
We have to do another one this July. So this is the one of
It's
2
done every
years.
2 years.
Yes. Just so as to give you an idea of what the Finance Committee is working with, I have a list of the draft, and when I say draft, I mean draft. It's the department, what the item is, and the dollar amount. These are the money articles that we have. They're not all of them, because the Finance Committee is working on those additional items that were given to them by the departments through the budgetary process, and they haven't made decisions on those, and whether or not those would actually be acted on. Some of them would require articles, others would just be included in the budget. But here's a copy for all of you.
Julie, do you need one?
I'll get it tomorrow.
She likes electronic. Right, Jules?
Is that it, Tim?
That's everything.
Okay. Still a couple minutes before.
I just have a quick question. Is this going to be discussed at next week's all boards meeting?
Mm-hmm. Along with the email I sent out to you today,
Yeah, I have.
free cash, this, where we are with the budgets, what the total dollar amount is. You'll get the spreadsheets for the,
Yeah, I have another meeting that night at 7, but hopefully it won't be too long, so I can get over to this.
and we'll still be going. And as earlier email I had sent you, we were looking at Volunteers Hall, but a couple of people have said that well, it's a beautiful site, the acoustics in it are terrible, so it is not there. Julie sent out an email later.
Bromfield.
It's at the Bromfield Library.
All right, well, thank you, Tim. Well, that brings us to the public communication time. So if anybody from the public would like to make a communication, you have the microphone.
Good evening. Worth Robbins, Mass Ave. Mostly I want to just make sure you know what I imagine you do know about the petition for a charter commission, as well as knowing what the steps beyond today look like. As Tim has already reported, the necessary number of signatures were certified and conveyed to you in a email or, a letter from Janet on the 19th, and it certified that 692 signatures had been obtained. 626 was the minimum number necessary to move the process forward, which represented 15% of registered voters at the last town election. According to the constitutional amendment and the enabling Mass General Law 43B, the process is as follows. Once the required number of signatures have been obtained and certified, the Board of Selectmen has a responsibility, a duty, to put the question called for in the petition on a town election ballot. And here's where a critical timing issue comes into play. That has to be done 60 days or more before the date of the election. So in order to be on the ballot for the April 12th election, you would have to have made that vote, made that order by February 12th, 60 days before the April 12th election. So no problem, you've got plenty of time to do that. The law provides you 30 days from the time you receive the notice of certification in which to take that action. And therein is an issue, because the date that the certification took place was the 19th of January, and 30 days from that would be beyond the 12th of February. I don't know, 5 or 6 days. So essentially, you have a choice. You have the choice to take the action in time for it to be on this year's ballot, or to take the action. You have no choice as to doing it. It will be on a ballot, but it could be on next year's ballot as opposed to this year's ballot. And that's sort of it in a nutshell. Obviously, the report you've just heard and the recommendations you've been given do naturally fall into the same, or fall within the scope of what a charter commission could certainly consider. It's a relatively small part of the total picture, but an important part. The charter commission approach is not the only way to proceed. The very same process that was recommended, the special act legislation, can be used to create a full-blown charter. And in fact, the way of getting to that action can be by creation, appointment of a special committee to do the same kind of work that a charter commission would do. So it's not a completely this or that choice. There are other possibilities. In my opinion, the committee approach is much less effective because it's less representative. It's not as prescribed as the Charter Commission approach is. The Charter Commission calls for a certain schedule of hearings, calls for review by the Attorney General to make sure that nothing goes against state law, whereas a charter committee doesn't have that requirement. So that's what I wanted to make sure you knew, that you have a decision to make, and basically it's a decision whether to put the question on the ballot for this year or to put the question on the ballot for next year.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
What I'm thinking is, last time we kind of got here in December, when Worth came to the microphone, we kind of quickly went down to the weeds. Tim's already said this is going to be on the meeting a week from tonight.
Oh, okay.
What I would ask, Worth, if you could come next week, we could all talk about it, and rather than, during a public commentary period, actually have an agenda topic, and Lucy's got some things.
Yeah,
Happy to
Have
do
to
that.
yeah, sure,
that
that's
work?
fine. Yep.
So if you could come, that'd be great.
Okay?
Can I just ask them a question?
Yeah.
Tim, it's two ballot questions. It's one if you want to do it, and then the second one is not you vote for the commissioners,
That's
Mhm.
what- Yeah.
right? So it's one if you're going to do it.
Yep.
And if that vote fails, then whoever vote, and you're obviously voting all at the same time, but then the vote just becomes
Correct.
null and void. Okay.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay?
Would anybody else like to make a public comment? Seeing none, the next topic on our agenda is to discuss the hiring committee for the finance director position.
that you,
Is
Tim?
is somebody supposed to be talking about this?
Which one? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading,
Finance director.
Could you turn the cartoons off, please?
Stella was abroad.
yeah. I am sorry. I was,
And we want to give him more authority? He just lost my vote.
Millard,
Don't even try. Don't even try. The hole's getting bigger and
it
bigger.
has to do with the town website, so.
Millard Rose?
Millard Rose finally got in touch with me. After I sent him an email. Yes, right now. I was,
Well, I hope the press is taking note of that. That's an important breaking news story. Welcome back to the meeting, Tim.
sorry, I dozed off there for a while. Let's see. We are now on.
Finance Director,
Finance
number
Director.
7.
Number 7,
Thanks. There we go. 7, Finance Director. The advertisement went into the Beacon. It went live electronically the day we sent it in. I sent everybody a copy of the final version. Each one of you sent, some of you had suggested some changes. We sent it out. It's in. We've already started receiving applications for the position. This is who will be on the committee to review them. I would suggest that at least one member of this board, myself, the superintendent of schools, representative from the school committee, be on it. I would suggest that we have a staff member on it as well, finance committee person. It is for the board to come up with who you want to have it on there, but I would suggest at least representation from those.
Would
And
this,
if the board would want others, then we would add others.
okay, would this be a subcommittee of the selectmen?
This would be a committee appointed by the Board of Selectmen. However, the review of applications is not an open.
No, I know, I think
Okay.
people need to be clear.
Yeah.
And when I can't remember, when are the applications due?
They do the Tuesday. Can I go back to my iPad to look at the calendar?
If you're monitored,
Wait a minute, let me go to my calendar on my phone. 16, 14, I believe you're right, it is the 23rd, which is the,
That's when our next meet, our second meeting in February is.
yes,
yeah.
it was after the school vacation break.
So tonight's topic is to talk about the makeup of the group?
Yes.
Or, so.
Right.
you
And I
said-
put forward to you my thoughts, and it's the board's decision as to how they want to do
A
it.
selectman, you, the superintendent, school committee, a staff member, and a finance committee person.
At a minimum, depending
So
how
it would
big
be
you want to make
It
it.
would be one other staff person from
Yes.
within the finance department?
Yes.
I think that's big enough.
Yeah, it seems like a
You
pretty,
don't want it to be too big.
No.
I I've seen them as small as 3, I've seen them as big as 13.
Well, I think given this is
Personally.
serving
Agree
to,
with
Yeah.
a much smaller group, and I think, you know, you have to have the interested parties, and you're covering both of those
Mhm.
right,
nicely.
it's
So,
un-
but
it's
five's
unusual to
good,
have
right?
2,
Five.
Yeah.
Five's an odd number.
5, 6.
So that's,
I mean,
Wait.
from what I've seen so far, the way we do around here,
Seems like we
It's
need,
six.
everyone
that's
gets
6.
along pretty well.
in generally, as in used in other processes that we've done, basically, we get all the applications, everyone gets, all 5 members get a copy of it. They go through, they rate their top candidates. Depending on how many applications we get, it determines how many candidates they rate, where they number them. You take a look at those, you compile those lists, you discuss them back and forth, because there may be some on the fringe that one liked that someone didn't, and you go talk it through. And, I mean, you get down, you hold the interviews, and you just keep
Winnow it down.
winnow.
What you've suggested is 6.
And what were the 6, Lucy?
School committees, school superintendent, a member of the Board of Selectmen, finance, a member of the finance committee, town administrator, and 1 staff from the finance department.
No, it's actually 7, right?
That's 6. I get 6.
Did you get 6 too?
Yes, I did.
But I'm not sure it's critical to have an odd
It's
number
not gonna be a
committee.
tie vote,
Right.
right? Usually,
I think
a
it's gonna be a
candidate rises to
consensus.
the top.
Right.
Usually you have the great separation. You have those that hear, you have those that you know aren't.
Get down to 2
And
that
then
are
there's
pretty
those
good.
in the middle, and depending on how many applications you get, it's the ones in the middle that you'll likely be discussing and
Right,
bringing
and
forward.
But you only can interview so many people anyway, so.
My sense is you'll arrive at a recommendation by consensus rather than a
Mhm.
vote. Are you interested in taking ideas of people to serve?
Well, actually, Leo had his hand up there.
Just the question is, are you gonna have Lorraine be the person from the finance?
Lorraine has agreed to serve on it, to assist the group and to go through the applications.
I
She
think
is
that's a good idea.
She is already going through, as I receive them, I go to her and she gives me this great input.
So she'd be the finance committee, she'd be the
She's
staff member?
Person from the finance department.
Well, no, it would be somebody from the finance department who would continue being working
Okay, so
with
she'd
him,
be a,
but Lorraine would be,
She's like
Special
a-
advisor.
yeah.
Yeah.
okay, she's the 7th person, essentially. So
She
tonight,
agreed to be able to assist us.
so you're looking for a motion to approve this
Well, I
setup of
just-
6 or of people?
However,
or-
whatever the board wants to constitute. I think, Lucy, you had,
Well, I guess I'll do it in 2 steps. First, I would move that we create a subcommittee for the hiring of a new finance director to be comprised of a member of the school committee, the school superintendent, a representative of the Board of Selectmen, representative of the finance committee, the town administrator, and 1 staff member from the finance department.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's unanimous?
Okay, and then I was going to nominate Stu to serve on this committee, since he has
Of course. you
had
are.
the benefit of being on the school committee as well as being on the selectmen, so he actually would understand some of the demands of both sides. So that's my nominee. Or motion that we appoint Stu.
I would second that motion. Sorry.
Relates me.
Sorry.
Right under the bus.
you just didn't want to come to you, right?
Yeah, so that's a real good idea, Lucy, and I'm with you on that.
Are there any other, so if we're focused on this selectman person, is there any other suggestions for a selectman person?
I would suggest Stu.
And I would second that.
All right, so that's been moved and seconded. Says, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so it's Stu.
And I have one thing to say. I think the person from the finance department should be Lorraine. I think it would be awkward to have someone who's gonna report to you being on the selection committee.
We usually, once we get it down to, like, when I went through it, I think there was 1, 2, I think there were 3 meetings I had to go through afterwards, one was with all the staff.
Yeah, we trotted
Do
you
remember?
around.
Yeah, you did. One
was
was with
show
the
and tell.
finance committee,
And you made it?
and one's with the board of selectmen.
Whoa.
And I made it.
Wow.
But Lorraine and Fred are the only staff, and Janet are the only people left from when I got here.
Scared him away.
Well, it's not a motion, it's just a suggestion. I would have it be Lorraine, but it's up to whomever.
So when are we gonna start looking at these resumes?
23rd?
23rd, probably.
23rd, once the deadline hits, then we're already started a folder, and all copies of everything will be given to you.
Okay, so moving down to item number 9, action discussion items. The first one is review and vote on new personnel policies.
Yes, these are personnel policies Marie has been working with our Labor Council on, and with the Personnel Board, and under our process. These were reviewed by the Personnel Board. Well, actually, I can
There
turn
was
it
a-
over to Stu.
Wasn't there a
They
hearing?
Reviewed by personnel board, we had a public hearing. I don't think anyone came to public hearing, but we did a public hearing, and we unanimously agreed to these. Marie did an excellent job, obviously, preparing them and looking at other towns and getting town council to sign off on it. So these were actually underwent 2 or 3 revisions. But I hope the board will act positively on them.
The employee or relatives one came from a recommendation from this board, and then the EOEP, the Equal Opportunity Employment Policy, was one that we had on originally, but had not been updated in well over 10 years.
So I had 2 questions.
Sure.
First one, the age discrimination. Why do you specify a given age? You say
That's-
40 and above.
That's a statute, the federal
It's
statute.
federal
Yes.
statute.
But can we have it just any age? Do we, I mean,
No,
that
the
would be
federal
the...
statute
That
is 40 and
establishes the
above.
protected class.
They are a protective class. Any action taken with any individuals within that age group, they are considered a protected class, and you better make sure that you're doing it according to Hoyle.
So it's okay to discriminate against somebody who's too young?
If you're 39, we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, and you don't want to have added protected classes becomes very problematic.
Anyway, I just, that
We
jumped
were
out
following
at me.
federal law on this stuff.
Okay.
And I think state laws actually mimics federal.
Yeah.
Okay, and then one other question, that this policy applies to blah, blah, blah. It doesn't list anybody, or it implies, you talk about recruitment and selection. You don't talk about specifically current employees on your long list.
Because they're already employees. This is the Equal Opportunity Employment Policy, so when somebody's applying for a position, somebody who's already here,
But then you have promotion and termination and all these other things.
Be for existing employees. That would
Right,
count
so-
for them.
so if you were in a position of the assistant treasurer and you wanted to apply for the treasurer's position, you would, and we would have to, during that process, we would have to follow this.
Oh, I
And
understand
we
that.
could not take age, religion, any of that
I
stuff.
understand, I'm looking at this list down
And
at the bottom,
I think,
not the top.
I don't know whether you're being a protective class yet or not.
No. I'm looking at this, watch it. Watch it.
She doesn't need protection, she could take you.
It's true.
Got my Kevlar vest on. No, it's this list down here.
Yes.
Right.
I know it says it's not limited to, but I just was wondering, this is something employees are gonna, would be given.
This be-
Right, so
This becomes part of the employee.
Package.
So should you make it clear that it also employs to currently employed?
I think the sentence that precedes it does that. It
Right.
says this
Employment
policy-
practices?
This policy applies to all employment practices and employment programs sponsored by the town.
Right.
So if you're an employee of the
Okay,
town.
okay,
It's
It's funny because it starts out with recruitment, and then you
Yep.
read it like, well, these are all the things
That's just because
recruitment's
that's
gonna
like
look at.
birth. I mean, it's just the beginning.
Like birth.
Prove it. That's where you start.
Better watch what you're discussing here.
Yes,
Okay.
Any questions on the relative policy?
Leo?
I have a
Leo?
question. Yeah, so I struggle with,
I know exactly where you're going.
yeah, so the first bullet point
On.
on the employment of relatives.
Oh, on employment relatives,
So everything in my experience tells me this is a real bad idea, right? So, so it's, you know, obviously it reads, individuals who are related by blood, marriage, or domestic partnership may be permitted to work in the same department, provided no direct reporting, supervisory/management relationship exist. That is hard to manage.
We had long discussions about
That
this.
you did.
Yeah, Marie's of the conviction, we have to have these policies.
Do we have to allow it?
It's hard not to allow it. And we already have brothers working at DPW, I think, right?
We have two brothers.
Yeah.
And we had a father and a son.
Son working, right.
Supervises.
No, right.
We have a father and
Father's
son,
son.
but the father does not supervise the son. The son is actually.
And we have a husband and
Right, well,
wife.
I said, if we don't approve, I can bring it back to personnel board. I don't, we
You're right. We have
wrestled
Janet-
with this for
we
a
have
while.
Janet and Gabe.
I know that.
And,
Right.
and we have.
And how about
We have
the,
Fred and his son.
And a son.
And then you have father, son, in
Jared.
DPW, and then two brothers in DPW.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
well,
This is not a good idea.
well,
To have
is
the
it a good
policy?
idea to leave
No,
it
to have-
blank?
To have all those.
But you can't not hire someone,
No,
right?
I'm not
So-
suggesting that.
Right, but so how do you, well, I
What are you
guess,
suggesting?
I'm open to any suggestions, I'll bring it back
But
to
not have a
personnel.
specific policy, just play it by ear?
I think what Mr. Blair might be alluding to is that it would be better if you did not allow relatives to apply for positions to begin with. Is that correct?
Mr. Blair would be unsure whether that's lawful.
Yeah.
So I think he would reserve his comment to say, it's never a good situation to have relatives working within the same organization, especially working within.
Is this from personal experience?
No, and I think in common sense it makes sense. I mean, I agree, but the legality issue is what we wrestled with, and you couldn't say, no, sorry, you can't apply for that job. And so if you're not gonna, if they have to be allowed to apply for the job, you sort of have to have a policy to cover it.
I think that's probably true. You can discourage people by saying, we normally don't hire relatives, but you're welcome to apply. But anyway,
So,
there's examples, not in town government, but in organizations within the town, where some very bad things happen when people hired relatives.
yeah, well,
Right.
if we don't want, if we don't have to.
Really bad things.
It's this board's decision, so, you know, I can just report it out to you.
What the process is, that comes to the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Selectmen can send it back with comments
Right.
and send it back to personnel, the Board of Selectmen can approve it, and then it goes back to personnel to be enacted.
Right.
That's the process.
So I guess my question would be for the personnel folks, what other option is there to that language?
Is there another option?
Yeah.
And it's really in the same department. I mean, you could have somebody working, who knows how it's working between schools and other things, but somebody working in the school and somebody working in the town
Actually,
hall.
the school actually has their own policy on this too. But,
Is it different than this?
yeah, not really.
So perhaps we can move ahead with the one policy and ask, and think a little bit and send back that question on this policy.
Yeah, that'd be fine with me.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
move,
and, well, but then let's also just look at the disclosure form too, because if we have any issues, because it's all together, so.
And personnel is meeting this Friday, so they'll be able to take it up quickly.
Right.
well, if we're not gonna, if we're sending the employment policy back,
Yeah, 1 out of 2 ain't bad. All right, so we like the equal opportunity employment policy, right?
with that.
So let's have a motion on that, perhaps?
Right.
I move we adopt the equal opportunity policy.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
So why would we do this disclosure form if we're not sure about how this policy is gonna be phrased
Yeah,
ultimately?
I think
It's no action.
both sides of the paper need to go
Yeah.
back.
Okay. You'll memo that out? Or do you want me to do it?
You can,
Okay.
So this might come back at our meeting next week?
Yeah, we meet on Friday.
well, that
Oh,
just,
that'd be kinda quick.
Well, we'll make the pack, we would make the packet official. I can send it out Friday after the meeting.
Or I don't think it's super urgent. I mean, you could bring it back to the next meeting, too,
Yeah, it's
right?
getting pretty busy for.
Yeah, it is getting pretty busy.
yeah, the second meeting is quite busy.
Okay, the next item, endorsed used auto annual licenses.
I forgot to include these when you guys signed the licenses last time. It's for Harvard Outdoor Power Equipment and Mill Road Tire and Auto. They've given me everything they needed. One of the gentlemen came in and he asked me, "Oh, did the license?" I'm like, "Yeah,
Coming.
my mistake."
Okay,
Okay, so you're asking us just to sign it, basically?
Yeah.
Do we
Just to
need to
sign
approve
them.
it, or just sign them? Did we? were
I would
there-
say approve them and sign them.
I move we
Yeah.
approve the used
Yes,
car
there's a
dealer's
motion.
license for Harvard Outdoor Power Equipment and Mill Road Tire and Auto.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, the next one is appointment of 2 folks to the Old Library Access Committee.
I have spoken with these 2 folks, Mike McAterian and Wendy McGann, who's appointed to the Harvard Historical Commission, and met recently. They both were very interested in serving on this. As you know, Mark is involved with the Cultural Collaborative, and Wendy's very interested in historic buildings in particular, and as an architect, understands accessibility. So they both are eager to serve. So I move we appoint Mark McAterian and Wendy McGann to the Old Library Access Subcommittee.
Is there a second?
I'll second the discussion.
Leo?
I would ask that we not take any action on these appointments. By the way, I would be strongly in favor of appointing both of these people. But I think we shouldn't take any action on the appointments tonight because Ron isn't here. And as you know, our policy says that as a courtesy, as a practicable courtesy, we won't take those actions unless we have a full contingent of the board.
Appointments?
So I sent Ron an email just saying, do you care? And he sent back an email saying, yes, I would like that action on these appointments be deferred until I return. And he said he would be here at the next meeting.
Is there a reason why we need to delay this, other than,
I did it as a courtesy to him. You know, it's,
It's only a week.
yeah, it's only a week.
well,
Meeting
if,
Next week.
if he really comes next week?
He said he is. He says in
No.
this he's coming.
He said he is. He said he may not be up to running the meeting, but that he would be here.
I would accept that with the understanding that if for some reason Ron cannot come or cannot stay for the whole committee
That's fair.
the whole
Yeah,
meeting,
that's
we
fair.
take action, because otherwise we might as well close up shop.
I'm all with you. You know, I was thrilled to get Wendy interested and enthusiastic, so absolutely, I agree. Thank you.
Okay, moving along. Recognize the Historical Commission resignations of Wendy and Scott Roy.
I would move that we recognize their resignations and thank each of them for their prior participation.
Do we need a second for that? All in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm upset that we're having these constant resignations, and I think at our meeting in June or whenever we have our strategic planning, we have to think hard about what causes this to happen. With our committees that we appoint, and for whatever reason, people feel they're not heard or they're not respected and they resign. And I think it's a big problem.
The next topic would be the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust term extensions. I think, Leo, were you talking for both topics here earlier? Is everybody okay with that this evening?
We have a problem with that one in that we've got proposals that have come in and we need to make a decision by the 8th of February on who we're going to award the proposal to. This is very, very short time for this committee to get turned around and read them and decide what they're going to do. If we put it off until next week. So I would hope that we could extend the existing trustees' terms until the end of this fiscal year so we can continue our business. I hate to see it dragged out, and this also can get telegraphed as another undermining of a group that's been working hard at trying to solve one property that they're holding. So I would hope we could extend Manny and Bruce for till June 30th.
So the communication I had,
Go ahead.
communication I had from Ron was relative to both, because I asked him about both.
Mhm.
I do think, we are meeting next Tuesday.
Correct.
So as long as the trust could schedule a meeting after next Tuesday,
Mhm.
they could act on the RFPs by the 8th.
And what is the critical nature of extending to existing trustees? I can see in creating a new subcommittee, the sense that it's a new appointment.
Well, because we talked about appointing board members, and Ken was kind enough to sort of defer being appointed.
Yes. Remember, I deferred to you.
I know, I do remember that. I'm just thinking we have a run rate that's costing money, and I'm concerned that one of the people being considered Manny is the treasurer. I don't know who else would want to continue that work that he's been doing. I don't see the value in not extending the terms just on a formality, unless you really intend not to reappoint one person, which I think is, it's further undermining committees.
All
I
right.
understand that we agreed that more than one selectman could serve on this trust. I understand, Ken, that you're interested in serving on it. I don't know what Stu's feeling is, but it could possibly end up being a committee of 5 selectmen and 2 citizens at large, and I don't know how effective that would be in recruiting 2 citizens, frankly. And that's been my concern all along. You all know that. So I'm disappointed that you feel that you need to postpone this.
Yes.
When do their terms actually end?
They ended in December 31st.
They should have been reappointed. If you follow the sequencing, I looked at the annual report. They're 2-year terms. They were up for reappointment last June. When I was away, the selectmen decided not to extend their terms, and another committee, and I can't, EDC maybe? No. One other committee, and I can't remember which. And it was to September, and then it was to December, because whatever decision was to have been made by September wasn't made, so then it was pushed to December, and in between September and December, the decision was made to allow more than one selectman to serve on the trust. And so these 2 have been in limbo.
See, I see this as a very significant move the selectmen made toward the end of last year to say, hey, we want to try a different path on the affordable housing based on the path it had been on, and to increase the number of selectmen, and Ron was a very big part of that discussion. And I would be in favor of waiting until he gets back to have this discussion. I mean, there is this courtesy law, bylaw, policy, or whatever we have, that says on things like this, it's a courtesy to the people to be involved, and this is a very important one, I think. and I think he should be part of this discussion. And, you know, we voted almost unanimously to expand the number of selectmen. There were 3 of us who were interested in doing it, but there was only 2 slots, so I said I'd wait for the next slot. So I'd like to be part of that discussion, but I'd like to have that discussion with the whole board. So I'd rather, I agree with Leo, I'd rather wait 5 days, or, sorry, 7 days.
I think this is different than constituting a board. Then making up a subcommittee, this seems different to me, but we already we have 3 selectmen on
Right.
MAHT now, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good representation. I do not want to be on the MAHT.
Haven't changed your mind?
No, so I guess, and I think Bruce and Manny bring something to it because they've been on it. I think they've both been active, and Manny was really excited getting on it because he hasn't been on that long.
No, he's a newcomer, and he's
Yeah.
very good, but,
Yeah, and he's an architect, and I think,
no, he's very good.
right, so that's what I think, we should, to give continuity and a little support to this committee to do this tonight, but, or not, or, I guess either, vote it tonight and so that they know what we're gonna do, because if it's a 2-2 vote, then,
Nothing happens, right?
well, nothing happens, but then they're gonna know when Ron comes back, Ron's feelings are this way, so at least they're not gonna be on it. I mean, it seems like we should provide clarity on this.
Well, I'm not sure that, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I'm not sure that the vote, if we take a vote a week from tonight, that it would not be to reappoint one or both of them. I don't know that, honestly. There's certainly going to be room on the trust for at least 3 if you don't choose not to be on it. And I respect that decision if that's your decision. Although I would support you being on it entirely. There would be 3 citizens at large appointed to it, in addition to 3 or 4 selectmen, depending on who wants to and who doesn't want to. So, but there's no real harm, I don't think, in waiting till next Tuesday. I do think next Tuesday we need to do something. I agree with that. But I don't want this to seem like it's a portend of something else. It's not that.
All right, well then, I guess I'd support waiting, but with the proviso that we're
Same
voting
thing as
it
the other
next
one.
week.
Yeah, I agree.
No, we have to make a decision on
Right.
this.
Is there anything else on this topic?
I would just like to voice my objection to that decision, but I realize it probably wouldn't pass anyway.
So voiced. Topic F, vote on proposed options for the fire and ambulance study that's in your packet.
You all received it. This is from the UMass Boston, Edward J. Collins Junior Center for Public Management. They're in the process of finalizing the DPW report for you. We requested that they get this to us so that it could be included in the town meeting warrant. As you can see, what their scope of services is, what their timetable would be, and the optional task included. The question is whether or not the board wants to do the original approach, which is 9,900, or add the additional 2,500 for the optional task.
Two questions. When do we expect, they're doing the DPW study, correct?
Yes.
When do we expect their report?
We expect their report at the beginning of February.
So next meeting?
It's a question, I'm working with Marie as to the timing as to when it's actually coming in. They called us last week they wanted to do 2 additional interviews, and Marie worked with them to set up at least one of them. One individual wasn't here, so she was
So they're
able
still,
to set up.
okay.
So, but otherwise, other than that, we've told them to just move ahead and finalize the report.
Okay, and then my second question was, or comment would be, I don't see how this study would be effective without doing the survey of the staff, because it seems that's a real critical piece of
Well,
our department.
in the report that you're getting now, there was no survey of the whole department of the DPW. There were individuals who were talked to. There were not 8 people who were interviewed from that department.
That's I get that. I just
Okay,
think in
I'm
this
just-
case, yeah, I just think in this case,
Volunteers.
yeah, I think we've got,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just think it's worth, we've had some issues. I'd like
Yep.
to see it completed.
So, I don't know if the timing on this works or not, but I'd like to see the results of the first study and see what's in there and what's actionable or not actionable, how much apple pie motherhood there is compared to actual information, and then make the decision whether it makes sense to do this in the next iteration. And if that meant we'd miss out on, because of a warrant article and have to wait a year, I'd be in favor of waiting a year rather than rushing into two.
To give you more information that you don't necessarily have, you're not at the finance committee meetings. The finance committee is aware that there's the request for at least an article.
We can
They,
always pull it, right?
Yeah,
you can always pull it. However, they are key in wanting to do the fire and ambulance and think it's great that they're both being done at the same time, given the requests and the issues that have come up during this budgetary process, as well as the fire department, which was in the report to you in their budget, looking forward to bringing on potentially full-time firefighter in 2018 timeframe. And that you have the ambulance who's looking to do what they want to do currently, and that they thought that this is a perfect time to be able to have that study done and to get that back before the next budget process. Because there, if you take a look at the list that I gave you earlier of warrant articles right now, there are 3 of them from the ambulance, there is none from the fire department right now, but there's also this article, and they're having to juggle it and try and make decisions. So-
I agree with Leo that we should see the first report before
So
we,
the presumption in that is that it's good work product.
Right.
How do you know?
right,
Yeah.
and I don't know who else we would go to.
I don't
but-
question that we need to know that information, I just don't know if this is the way to
So,
get
I
it.
mean, we're
But I
not
would
messing
like-
this up by a year anyway, though, because by February 23rd,
Good.
we'll have it.
We'll know.
So we'd vote, we
We'd
can
have time.
discuss and vote on it then, and we have a placeholder in already.
I was just
There's
gonna
a-
say, it can still go
There's a placeholder in
forward.
there with $2 amounts.
I would recommend the 12,400 to
I agree.
include the
Yeah, I
survey.
think there's agreement there.
Because then you can
Yes,
always reduce the
absolutely,
dollar amount or
absolutely.
withdraw it.
And you can always withdraw it, but I think,
Right.
And there are a lot of volunteers between the ambulance, that's a lot of people,
Yeah.
and that's why a survey makes sense to me. Surveying 9 people, that's sort of tough.
Yeah.
Surveying 60 people?
Yeah.
Get some really good
There
information.
can be differences of opinion there.
Yeah,
So,
well said.
yeah. All right.
Okay, so that wraps that one up. So we're up to selectmen reports. Who would like to begin? Does anybody have anything?
A few things. All right, so the cable committee did hire their contractor director. She's a dynamo, her name's Anya, and I'm forgetting her last name, but she's from Chelmsford, she's on their cable committee, she has a lot of experience, and as I mentioned to at least 1 or 2 of you in passing, we really got some great applicants, and I think the woman we got is just awesome. And I'm expecting great things out of her, and really getting more programming done, and she's got a lot of energy, so I think that was great. The MOU will be on our agenda for next week. The school committee voted it, very minor changes, no big deal. The MOU on
The cable MOU.
cable, right. So that's basically done. I'll give it for everyone for next week's packet. The parking lot at the school is jumping through hoops and over hurdles, and they've gotten, what have they gotten? They've gotten planning board unanimous approval, pond committee approval, Concon had an issue about a dumpster relocation. They're doing that, so I don't know if it'll be in time, it won't be in time for next week. For our 23rd meeting, we'll be able to discuss, have all the facts and discuss and vote on about paving the high school parking lot. And that's all I had.
Okay, Lucy?
I think 2 of the things I was going to raise have already been discussed. And I would just like to bring to the public's attention that the Devon's Open Space and Recreation committee has been meeting regularly, probably quarterly at least. And for over a year, we have not had a Harvard representative to that committee. Bill Ash was on it originally, and then I think Bill Ash and Larry Finnegan were on together. And I think since they both stopped, I don't believe we've had anybody. So I would like to see us appoint somebody to that committee. Maybe you could put something on the town website to that effect, Julie?
Yeah.
And if anybody wants any information on it, they can contact me.
Go ahead.
I have one more thing, I'm sorry, I forgot, it's actually pretty big. Tomorrow we find out if the K-wing is gonna be funded and what level it's gonna be funded to from the state.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow. Superintendent's going to the meeting, and we will find out what they've approved the project for and what percentage the state will cover. So I'll have it for next week's meeting.
On the money articles you look at, the FinCom has put in a placeholder of $500,000.
Yeah.
Lucy, did you have anything else?
No, because the other things that I was going to raise have already been discussed.
That's good. Leo? Okay, I just have, the capital committee yesterday, not the school thing, actually, the capital committee has to review any proposals to do architectural studies on things that may be capital projects, and the school committee came, Susan Mary asked us to approve a study that they want to do on the Bromfield House. They want to hire an architect and see what it would cost to put an addition on the back of Bromfield House and to make the first floor accessible, and kind of go that route, just have another alternative, if you will. So the capital committee approved that proposal unanimously, and she went off to the school committee last night to discuss it. I don't know what happened. The other thing I just want to mention, at the joint boards meeting, which is just a day after our next meeting, it's 8 days from now, various boards are going to be presenting things to think about and talk about, and I would assume at our next meeting, we should spend a moment on that. I would think, at a minimum, we'd want to share with the other boards some of our thoughts on some of the process around the old library, for example. Although I think a lot of the folks there are familiar with it, I think that's a good thing to share with them. There may be some other things, so I just want to.
When will we get an agenda from Alice?
I would imagine that it will be either after tomorrow night's meeting or Monday, the latest, from Saturday's meeting. I am not in attendance tomorrow, at their meeting tomorrow, I'm going to have another commitment.
Do you have, so you don't have any idea of what her expectation is for this meeting?
I sent that out to you earlier.
Well, it was pretty broad, I mean, just.
Was everything that we,
last year.
it was usually the same topic items, and then there was the discussion of free cash,
Oh,
Yeah.
OPEB, all of that.
So it seems like it'll be mostly financial.
Well, there is an article on there for $150,000 for this building. So I would imagine that the scope of the discussion that Mr. Swanton wants to talk about would go hand in hand. I would imagine they'd want to hear as much.
We could talk about accessibility.
Okay.
Just,
Okay, I think that's it. Nobody else has anything else. I think
move
we're
we adjourn.
adjourned.
I move to adjourn.
I already did that.
Oh, I second Lucy's motion.
Adjourned.
You didn't take a vote.
Do we have to?
I think we stay in session if we don't.
Ugh.